Morning, everybody. Chapter 3 of Bud Not Buddy. Gonna jump in today. This book is a good one. Takes a little to develop. It's fun though, but it gets even better. This book gets good. It's a good one. Remember our mindfulness from yesterday? Take a minute. Close your eyes. Don't close your eyes. Breathe deeper. Search for something deeper is what I said. Go deeper. Take a minute there. You find you can, it's a good way to kind of access a really positive space. While we're all inside, might be good to just try here and there. Okay, chapter 3. The only thing I could hear, remember he was locked in a shed. The only thing I could hear was my own breath. It was so loud that it sounded like there were 6 scared people locked up in the shed. I closed my eyes and I thought real hard about making my breath slow down. Pretty soon it sounded like the 5 other breathers in the shed had left. I was still scared, but now it was that get real excited and want to move around kind of scared. It didn't take too long for my eyes to get used to the dark. There was a gray gas can in one corner next to a bunch of gray rakes and a pile of gray rags and a gray tire and some gray fishing poles. Maybe Mr. Amos had only pretended to lock the door. I reached my hand towards the gray doorknob, and quick as that, I went from being calm to being in that stand in one place with spit drooling down the front of your shirt, kind of scared. Halfway up the door, there were 3 little flat monster heads guarding the doorknob. Each head had 2 little round eyes staring at me. The eyes were the only things in the shed that weren't gray. They were bright yellow with a big black spot right in the middle. I dropped my blanket and pillow, and I backstepped until my legs hit the woodpile behind me. From all the fast breathing going on, you'd think the other 5 people had come back and brought a couple of scared friends with them. He was just breathing so hard it sounded like he had a lot of people in the room. Each head had a wide-open mouth with a sharp set of pointy teeth and lips, ready to bite. It felt like the shed was getting smaller and smaller, and the little mouths were getting closer to closer. Then I knew what I was looking at. The doorknob guards were 3 dried-out fish heads that someone had nailed to the door. I ran over to the pile of rags. Isn't that so weird? Old fish heads as a doorknob guard. I ran over to the pile of rags, and I poked at one of them with my shoe to make sure they weren't rats or centipedes. Then I picked it up and hung up over the fish head so I could see them, and they couldn't see me. I picked up a blanket and pillow, and I decided, well, it was just best to sleep. I knew the floor was no good. I bet all sorts of bugs and roaches were crawling around. I remember it happened to my best friend, Bugs, when a cockroach crawled in his ear one night at the home. 4 grown folks held Bugs down while they tried to pull it out with a pair of tweezers. When they were digging around in Bugs' ears with the tweezers, he thought they were pulling his legs. They got it, though. After 15 minutes of Bugs screaming, they said they were going to have to take him to the emergency room. It was almost morning when Bugs got back. Everyone was asleep except me. I waited until they put him in his bed and turned off the lights. Did they get it out? Oh, yeah, they got it out. Did it hurt a lot? Nope. Were you scared? Nope. Then how come you were screaming so much? I don't know. I could hear me screaming because the cockroach was loud in my ear. I'd seen lots of cockroaches, but I never heard of them make any sound. How are they loud? Well, Bugs ain't so different from us. You'd think as soon as he saw those tweezers coming at him, he got terrified. He started screaming in English, too. What did he say? He kept saying, my legs, my legs. What are they doing to my legs? And that is the true story of how Bugs started getting to be called Bugs. That was an interesting little memory, huh? I bet $1,000 there were roaches on the floor, just like the one that Bugs had gone through, waiting to crawl in my ears. But I bet those Amoses wouldn't have even tried to pull the roaches out if I had one. I spread the blanket on top of the woodpile, and I climbed up on it. This put me so I was even with the window. I took a piece of bark and I brushed all the spider webs away, and I put my hand on the glass to see if the newspaper was pasted on the inside or the outside. I touched paper. It was pasted on the inside. I spread my fingers in my hand like a yellow jacket bumblebee, bright yellow with black stripes. This was a great place to have shadow puppets. After a while, that got to be boring, so I scraped at the paper with my fingernails so I could see a little outside. I like to keep my nails down low, though, so the paper didn't budge. I took out my jackknife and I tried scraping the newspaper with it. The paper peeled away in little curly strips. I got a big hole enough to see with my mashed eye up against the glass. I could see the back of the Amos's house, clear. There was a light on. That had to be Mr. and Mrs. Amos's bedroom. That bit of light came through the hole in the newspaper and got me calm enough to lay my head down and take a nap. When I blinked my eyes open, the first thing I noticed was that the light from the Amos's bedroom was now out. The next thing I noticed made me wish I'd stayed asleep. On the very top of the shed was the biggest vampire bat you'd ever seen. He was hanging upside down asleep, but the smell of me rising up to him probably would wake him any minute. I reached over to the window and I tried to slide it open. It budged an inch. I rolled off the woodpile and I crawled towards the door with the fish head guards. I reached my hand up and the doorknob turned. Mr. Amos was trying to help me, but the door, after it opened a crack, the padlock held it tight. I looked up into the rafters to see if the bat had woken up. He was asleep. Just like there's that time there's a smart person who knows enough is enough, there's a time when you know you've got to fight, too. I wasn't about to let this vampire suck my blood dry without a war. He could kiss my wrist if he thought this was going to happen. I got up off my knees and I picked up the gray rake. Now the thing is he's in the dark and he's seeing things. I don't think he really sees a vampire bat. I walked over to the woodpile cool as a cucumber, but everything in my guts was shaking. I stood on the woodpile and I held the rake like it was a bat. I eyed where the bat was sleeping and I revved the rake like I was going to hit a 400-foot home run. And just before I swung, I remember another one of Bud Caldwell's rules for and things for having a funner lifing and making a better liar out of yourself. Number 328. When you make up your mind to do something, hurry up and do it. If you wait, you might talk yourself out of what you wanted to do in the first place. Shucks, I couldn't remember for sure if I'd killed a vampire by driving a stake through its heart or shooting it with a silver bullet. If I was wrong and I didn't kill the bat right away, was I going to be trapped in the shed with a vampire bat? I took my jackknife out of my pocket and I pulled the blade open. That way, if I didn't kill him with the rake and he came down to two of us tussling on the floor, maybe a silver blade in his heart would be just as good. I raised the rake over my head again, closed my eyes, and I swung it like I was Paul Bunyan chopping down a tree with one blow. I felt the rake jerk a little when it hit the bat, and I opened my eyes to see the vampire get cut in half. I was kind of surprised it didn't scream or cry, "Curses, you got me!" Instead, the only sound I heard was rattling, like a couple of pieces of paper rubbing together or dry leaves blowing. The next sound I heard was worse than if a vampire had said, "Kid, that hurt, now I'm going to get my revenge." It sounded like I'd turned on a buzzsaw. All of a sudden, it felt like someone stuck a red-hot nail in my left cheek. My hands reached up to grab my cheek, and I felt something creepy and prickly. That was the maddest, biggest hornet I'd ever seen. I squeezed my hand shut to crush it, but I got sting on my palm. What I thought was a vampire was really a hornet's nest. And now there were 6,000 hornets flying around the tiny shed, each and every one of them looking for me. Another filer nail went into my knee and a second one in my sock. Maybe this is why the other kid they had found there had been as big as a whale. He was swole up from all the hornet stings. I dropped my shoulder down and I charged against the door with all my might. The door banged against the lock, but it didn't budge. All that happened was the rag that I had covered the fish heads with came off and bounced and landed on the floor. This time when I charged at the door, I put my hand out like Paul Robeson running down the football field. That wasn't a good idea. I forgot about the fish head door guards. My fingers went right into the mouth of the biggest one, and the needle cut me like a little razor, the needle teeth. I pulled my hand back. Another hornet buzzed on my ear, and it felt like someone poured hot wax down my brain. The only thing I could think of was jump on the woodpile and bust out the glass window. Well, I grabbed the handles of the window, and I gave them one more jerk. I guess being scared gives you a lot of strength, because this time, the window flew open with a loud bang. 3 hornets found me at the same time, and all 4 of us fell out the window. As soon as we hit the ground, I rolled as far away from the shed as I could. I smacked and whacked the hornets that had taken a ride on me, and I caught my breath. After the while, the stings and the fish guard bite didn't hurt so much. I started getting madder and madder. I was mad at the Amoses, but most of all, I was mad at me for believing that was a vampire in the shed and getting trapped in there, where there was anybody who cared what happened to me. I simmered down, and I started thinking about getting even. I wonder how hard I'd have to pull the trigger on that double-barrel shotgun for it to go off. I sneaked up the back porch steps to get inside the house. Maybe the vampire bat didn't say, but the only thought in my mind was, You, Amos's, that hurt. Now I'm going to get my revenge. And that leads us to chapter 4 tomorrow. There's a total of 17 chapters in this book. Like I said, it gets going a little slow, but then it starts picking up speed, and he starts having adventures. And this poster plays big very soon. And this is actually historic fiction. A lot of people you'll meet and a lot of things that happen are super interesting about a culture that happened during the Great Depression. And it was a way for some African American populations who had migrated from the South to literally make a way to make things good when things were really super difficult. Keep cooking. I'll see you guys tomorrow.